अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाजरीन, मैं हूँ समी इब्राहिम. आप देख रहे हैं हमारा YouTube channel. And today we have a special guest with us, Cynthia Ritchie, a known figure in Pakistan. She hails from United States, but she called Pakistan her second home. She's a blogger, she's a human rights activist, and she has been living here since 2010. And we all know that she talked about various atrocities, she talked about hardship, she talked about difficulties in Pakistan, and she also went through a situation. The matter is in the court, so I will leave this up to Cynthia to talk about it. And then we will talk today about her experiences in Pakistan. How did she find, because it's altogether a different world from where she was born. Cynthia, thank you very much for joining us today. And tell us something about your story, about your ongoing case. I saw your Twitter account and I saw your timeline. Going through that, I can imagine you went through a very difficult time. So your experience, your expectations, if you want to share with us.
Absolutely. For me, this has been one of the most unique experiences in Pakistan. I've been in and out of the country for about a little over 10 years now. And I always say Pakistan has been one of my greatest teachers for the good and the not so good. Yes, as you rightly mentioned, these cases are sub judice, they're before the court. So my hope is that at the end of the day, my goal is for truth and reconciliation. And I would say that despite the difficulties that I've gone through over the summer, I went through an enormous amount of rape threats, intimidation threats from various individuals that happened to work with the People's Party of Pakistan when I went public. And the intimidation and the threats to me are one thing, but when my loved ones began to be targeted, it became something very different. Yes. And I would say, even though it was massively uncomfortable and it disturbed me for quite some time, of this, it has helped me to empathize more with what the local people quite possibly have been going through, and what we hear about in the news quite often is that if someone like me, a Westerner, a foreigner, someone who has been a friend to Pakistan, as I like to think of myself, if someone like me can go through something like this intimidation and overwhelming, threatening campaign, what are the local women going through?
And what was the reaction of the other people? I mean, of course, there were 2 or 3 PPP stalwarts, you accused them, but the other People's Party leaders, and particularly I want to know, what were you expecting from Bilawal Bhutto, from Daughters of Benazir Bhutto on that issue, and did they say anything?
As far as I know, nothing was said. And I think, to me, that's one of the most disappointing aspects of this whole thing. I would have had tremendous respect for the chairman of the People's Party, Bilawal Bhutto, if he had come forward and said, these claims Cynthia are making are serious, and we will treat them seriously and with sensitivity, and we will also do our part to ensure a transparent, impartial investigation takes place. If Bilawal Bhutto had said that, I would have had tremendous respect for him.
And you've been to the courts, you've been to various other powerful people, you must have been talking to them. Your experience, your expectations?
Well, I would say that justice for me, in my case, in Pakistan, will likely look very different than what I might have originally anticipated. Perhaps very different than what it could be in the United States as well.
And you've been living here since 2010?
On and off since.
On and off.
Yes.
And most of the time you lived in Islamabad, or you traveled to the other parts of the country too?
I've been all over Pakistan, but I live primarily in Islamabad. So I've been to all the major cities, all of the provinces, but I live here.
And your focus was mostly on human rights?
You know, I had an interest in a number of things with Pakistan. From the beginning, I felt the global narrative surrounding Pakistan was massively inaccurate. I believed it was due more to politics more than anything. I believed people were benefiting greatly off of a negative narrative surrounding Pakistan, both domestically and internationally. And for me, I wanted to get to the truth. What is Pakistan? Who are the Pakistani people from the north to the south, the east, the west, the people of Kashmir? These are things that I wanted to learn about, the human interest stories.
So what did you find?
So much. So much.
So what about these conspiracy theories here in Pakistan? Everything seems to be very politicized.
Yes.
You talk about accountability, you talk about human rights, you talk about anything. It's highly politicized.
Yes.
What do you think?
No, absolutely. You're correct, and that's unfortunate. In other words, you know, for me, friends are important in life, and a true friend is not always going to tell you everything that you want to hear. A true friend is going to help guide you. If your shalwar kameez is not properly adjusted, you know, if you ask someone for feedback to make sure that your hair is properly done before you go on camera, these are people who guide you, friends who help provide you constructive feedback, and it may not always be something positive or nice that you want to hear. And it's up for us as individuals and cultures and countries to be able to appreciate constructive feedback, because that helps us grow.
You did mention about this negative outlook of Pakistan or perception. Why is that?
You know, I think that this was by design. I think it was by a global design. Pakistan certainly has a number of issues that it needs to rectify, of which I can certainly speak to personally. And again, that these experiences, there's a saying, that which does not kill you can only make you stronger. So these experiences that I have gone through have helped me greatly empathize with the plight of the people of Pakistan, those who have been victimized in a number of ways. But for many in the West, it's often difficult to differentiate between genuine claims versus the disingenuous claims.
And you must have met various people talking about this issue of missing persons in Pakistan, issue of gross violations of human rights. Did you investigate yourself?
Absolutely.
And so what was your finding?
You know, and it's such, Pakistan is such a massive country, and with so many interests and so many different voices that want to be heard. My goal was, and it has always been, to find who the true stakeholders are, who the true representatives are of these cases, if at all. And one particular human rights movement that I was looking into is the Pashtun Tahfuz movement. And I wanted their story. I wanted their perspective.
Oh, you met the PTM people?
I tried. They would not meet with me.
Why?
That's a great question. Why would the Pashtun Tahfuz movement, why would leaders of the Pashtun Tahfuz movement who claimed that there was an article that Manzoor Pashtun was quoted saying he wanted the international community to come investigate. He wanted people to come ask questions. He wanted a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that is easily searchable. And so here I am, an international, trying to uncover, okay, let's find out. And so I made it public. I tweeted to Mohsen Dawar for me to meet with him. I wanted to sit down with him and discuss what his perspectives were. I sent him a message on his cell phone. I acquired his contact information because I wanted to know from him directly what is going on. From his side, I received no response from Mohsen Dawar. I received no response from any of the PTM leadership. We did manage to interview some human rights activists, prominent human rights activists in this country, and they had very interesting things to say as well.
You traveled through tribal area.
Yes.
You went there. Did you try to investigate, and did you find any evidence which PTM is saying, or some other people who are talking about Pashtun rights are saying?
You know, there are elements of truth to what the Pashtun Tahfuz movement is saying.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to be supportive of anything that's truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I have interviewed officials within the military, and they have, of course, off camera acknowledged that were definitely areas that they could have improved, and they are working to try to improve the plight of the people
Mm-hmm.
in the region. Some of the claims that were made by the leadership of the Pashtun Tahfuz movement were things like the going through checkpoints, the discrimination that the Pashtun were facing going through checkpoints. You know, that can't be quantified or qualified. We never could substantiate any evidence or
Mm-hmm.
substantiate their claims or uncover any evidence. And when we tried to look into that, no one could provide us with anything. When we discussed the landmines, the Pashtun Tahfuz movement were accusing the military of intentionally planting these mines to kill the people. The military doesn't have any interest in killing its own people. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
For God's sakes, this is that's an absolutely crazy claim to make, but I still wanted to look into it. Most of these landmines are there from when the Soviets placed them.
Yes, absolutely.
And the military is having to, I don't think Manzoor Pashtun fully understands the work that is involved in demining an area, the manpower that is required, the scale and the skill that is required to slowly and methodically demine a massive region. I mean, this is not like saying, okay, can you please go demine F6 in Islamabad? Mm-hmm. It's not a small, contained, relatively flat area. These are mountains. I mean, these are ridges of mountains that must be scaled. And when you have local farmers, your normal local farmers that don't know, and they're traveling with their sheep on foot and so forth and so on, they might accidentally come across a mine. That is not anyone's fault as far as I can tell. And they may have crossed over an area that the military hasn't demined yet. Mm-hmm. But the area is so large, so to try to blame the military for these things is absolutely ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. Tell me one thing, when you accuse these powerful people of rape and all these bad things which happened to you, what was the response of the Pakistani human rights activist, I mean the known human rights activist? Because I know once there was a rape case in Multan, I forgot the name of the lady. It was during Musharraf's time. And then we saw all NGOs and human rights groups of Pakistan, they came out and they supported that lady. And then she was she was allowed to fly to America also. I just forgot her name. Did they support you?
Overwhelmingly, the majority were silent.
Why?
You'll have to ask them. I think it's because I was politically inconvenient. Had my claims been associated with PTI, for instance, I think everyone would have come out and supported me. But that's not the reality. That wasn't my truth. Mm-hmm. And so I became a politically inconvenient truth.
Cynthia, thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk. And we will try to engage you in future also. And we would like you to share your experiences with us so the public should know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ritchie.